Hi, everybody. Welcome to our session, Integrating Indigenous Perspective in Career Education. So my name is Jen, and I'll be hosting this session today alongside my colleague Joy, who will be mending the chat, and of course, our guest speakers, who I'll introduce shortly. But first, let me again say thank you so much for joining today. We know that teachers are very busy, so we do appreciate the time that you're taking out of your day to be learning about this very important topic. So let me begin with a land acknowledgement. So on behalf of my blueprint, we respectfully acknowledge that we are located on traditional and unceded territories of the Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island, also known as North America. We acknowledge the past, present, and future Indigenous peoples throughout Turtle Island. We recognize the importance of teaching one another and commitment to working together towards reconciliation. So let me introduce our agenda today. So the first thing I'll do is just go over some basic housekeeping items, some house rules, and then I'll introduce our guest speakers, and then they'll dive in and share the wonderful resources that they have. After that, we'll share some takeaways, some implementation ideas so that you can go and implement all the things that we shared right away tomorrow in your classrooms. And then we'll have time for some question and answer. And at the end, we always appreciate the time that you give us to give us some feedback. So that is our plan for today. So let's get to it with some housekeeping rules. So the first one is the presentation will be recorded. It will also be shared, so you can share it with your colleagues that cannot be here today. Please keep your questions coming. It's always good to get some feedback. You can use the chat. You can also use the feature that we have. So you'll see just under, you have the option for the questions and answer, and you can also upvote some questions. So at the end, we have time to answer some of your questions, or our guest speakers will be able to answer them. And it was already asked, and I already mentioned it, but let me say this again, that yes, we will share everything that we will be showing you today. We'll be sharing some of my blueprint resources, and Taking It Global will also be sharing some resources. And again, we'll be sharing this webinar. So before we present our guest speaker, I just want to touch on a few things. The first thing is sharing with you our session goals. So our goal today, so we have two main ones. The first one is for everyone here to gain strategies to integrate Indigenous perspectives in the curriculum to foster cultural appreciation and understanding among students. The second goal that we have today is for you to receive some resources that fosters community engagement and amplifies Indigenous voices and promotes meaningful dialogue among students from diverse backgrounds. Before diving more into it, I also want to take a moment to take a look at these statistics that highlight current educational disparities in Canada. So although that there has been progress made in Canada to improve educational outcomes of Indigenous youth, it is an ongoing process. High school graduation and post-secondary graduation rates have been on the rise, but there are still a lot of challenges to face and solutions to put forward. So today, in this session, we will be addressing culturally irrelevant curricula, so issues related to that, and share some innovative approaches to address these issues. Some of you might already be familiar with this framework that comes from the Ontario Curriculum Pathway to Success. So this framework leads students through the process of inquiries for them to forge their life and career path. So this is based on 4 inquiry questions: the question of who am I, what are my opportunities, who do I want to become, and what is my plan for achieving my goals. So these 4 questions in this framework are a great stepping stone, but it's important to take the time and acknowledge that these questions are missing some dimensions to be more culturally inclusive. So these additional questions that you can see on the slides in Pathway to Success are there to give opportunities for students to explore through a more inclusive lens that celebrates their heritage and cultural values. So if you see here from the first question, the question that comes with who am I, the question of where do I come from? So this question connects with the heritage of students. it also connects to the land. So really understanding where you're coming from before you can continue your exploration. The second aspect is, what does my community need? So this question, what does my community need, brings forth a more collective approach to what we're usually used to when it comes to career education, that is usually more centered to what do I want, looking a little bit beyond that. Now moving to who do I want to become, also taking into account how does my choice impact generations to come. So this really focuses on looking at sustainability, looking at prosperity for all, and looking at a future that is more inclusive for everybody. Now, the last question, and a very important one that we're going to be tackling today, is what is my plan for achieving my goals, but also what are all the resources that are relevant to me that are at my disposal? So those are questions and angles that we're going to be tackling today with our guest speakers, who I will introduce right now. So first, let me introduce Michael Furdyk, who is the co-founder of Taking It Global, a charity that designs and delivers youth engagement programs. So Taking It Global was awarded the Intercultural Innovation Award by BMW and the United Nations Alliance of Civilization and the Tech Museum Award of Innovation benefiting humanity in the education category. So Michael has appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and I'm a big fan of Oprah, so I'm a little bit jealous. But also you presented at TED Talks, also a big fan of TED Talks, so that's awesome. It was named one of Teen People's, that is a mouthful, 20 teens that will change the world.
It was a long time ago. It was a long time.
It wasn't, but still, that's still awesome. You can continue for a long time. You can continue to feel proud of that accomplishment. So Michael has completed his Master's of Design in Inclusive Design at OCAD University and has served as an adjunct professor for the Master's of Education Technology program at Long Island University. That's a long list of accomplishments. Thank you, Michael, for being with us today. So unfortunately, Christine, who was supposed to be part of our panel today, due to unforeseen events, she can't join us, but we're super happy to welcome Jasmine Albert, who's going to be joining the conversation today. So Jasmine, welcome. Jasmine is a Plains Cree and Métis woman living in Treaty 6 territory. She convocated from the University of Saskatchewan with a bachelor's in education in 2019. She's an educator, artist, and knowledge keeper. Jasmine currently works with Connected North as a session host and facilitator. Sharing her love of culture and creativity is a vital part of Jasmine's success. So thank you so much, Jasmine, for being with us. So now I'm going to turn over the table to our guest speakers who will be presenting their resources and great programs that they have.
Thanks so much, Jen. It's really a pleasure to be here. And I know Christine wishes she could be here. She had a last-minute family emergency, but a big thank you to Jasmine for quickly accepting the invite and opportunity to join me. Jasmine was involved in creating some of the resources on our team that we'll be sharing today, so it's a perfect fit as well. I'm just gonna take over the screen sharing. So just quickly to initially showcase one of the resources. So there's actually a few bonus resources we'll be sharing with you today, and one of them is Whose Land, which is the website www.whose.land. And so you can see I've clicked Where Am I? So just to locate myself, our Toronto office is based on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, including Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Wendat peoples, part of Treaty 13 here in Toronto.
Sorry, Michael, at the moment, are you sharing your screen? Because I cannot...
Oh, I am. Let's just try again. I think you may have to stop. I'm still seeing yours.
Okay, so I have stopped.
I'll just share.
There we go. You should be able to now. There we go.
Great. All right. Is that up now? You can
yes,
see it?
It is. We can see.
Great. So this is my Where Am I? So just to locate myself and where I'm based here in Toronto. And this website, this resource was created along with Bold Realities and Canadian Roots Exchange to give people an opportunity to learn more about the treaty territory they're on, the communities near them, a residential school history, and also leadership stories. So it links together a lot of the things we'll be talking about and sharing today. And Jasmine, maybe I'll just give you a quick moment to introduce yourself too in your role with Connected North. I've just pulled up the Treaty 6 page here for you too.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, so I am Jasmine Albert, and I am connecting from Treaty 6 territory, or Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I am a session host and provider, as well as a Saskatchewan school support with Connected North. And I've been with them for about, on contract, about 2 or 3 years now, but I've been working with Connected North since before I finished my degree. So quite a while.
Thanks. And just for those who don't know what Connected North is, the Connected North is the main program that our charity leads. And as Jen mentioned, this is actually our 25th year as a charity. So Taking It Global is really focused on creating youth engagement programs. We spent our first decade, I started as a grade 12 student back in 1999, when the World Wide Web was just kind of beginning to come into popularity. And that was the same year the United Nations set out the Millennium Development Goals to kind of solve the world's problems by 2015. Didn't quite do that, but it made a lot of progress. Our first decade was focused on a lot of policy around the digital divide. We were part of the World Summit on the Information Society, and it was the first time ever the United Nations had youth and students as an official stakeholder group. So we were doing a lot of work lobbying for funding for internet access and to close the digital divide, mostly in West Africa and Southeast Asia. And in the late 2000s, we had 2 First Nations team members here in Canada who said, it's great we're doing this work in other countries and other regions, but could we do more here to serve especially the territories? The digital divide in the territories is quite significant. And until recently with Starlink, there was extreme bandwidth limitations in many of the communities in the Northern Territory. So that led us as an organization to think, okay, how could we use our skills with technology and education to do something that responded to the needs of communities? And that's where we kind of stumbled across Connected North. So this program was started as a pilot in one school in Nunavut, Aksarnit Middle School in Iqaluit. And it was kind of inspired by now Governor General Mary Simon issuing like a call to action to the corporate sector to say, how can companies help to address the lack of access to mental health services and quality education in the North. And so Cisco donated, you can see here, this high-end video system to one school, and that enabled students over satellite to connect to artists and authors and scientists and researchers all over Turtle Island. And it played such a role in strengthening student engagement that more schools were interested, and it grew to 5 schools. And then Cisco came to us and said, okay, we can't run this program in our company. We really need a charity that cares about education technology to take over. So we've now been running Connected North for 8 years, and we've grown to now 170 schools. So we're serving every school in Nunavut, every school in the Yukon, and many other First Nation operated schools in other provinces and territories. And so on a daily basis, that's the work that Jasmine and I do, is kind of designing live virtual learning experiences to connect to the curriculum and really help bring the world to these classrooms. And as you can imagine, during the pandemic, our program was significantly impacted. Many schools closed, and they also didn't have the bandwidth to keep delivering the live sessions to the classroom. So what we decided to do is create some on-demand resources with our content providers to make use of that network that we had, and also to engage our team in creating content to benefit those students in the North, but also any student. And so now we've got these 3 great learning resources that we're going to share today that are Creative Commons, completely free for any school to use. And so maybe we'll start with Fireside Chat. So Jasmine, I'll turn it over to you just to share a little bit about the Fireside Chats program and your experience, and then I can share a few example Fireside Chats with people too.
For sure. Thank you so much. So I was interviewed by Fireside Chats right at the height of, when COVID started in 2019, I believe it was. And then later on, I began to also interview people for, so I guess 2022. I thought it seems like it was earlier.
It might have been earlier. That might be the date it was published on the site, because we launched the site after.
So no worries. But yeah, so I also had the privilege of interviewing many other Indigenous professionals and students. So part of Fireside Chats, we interviewed a number of our what is it called? Where they got laptops.
Digital inclusion grants.
Digital inclusion. I knew it was an inclusion grant, but I couldn't remember what it started with. So we interviewed a number of those recipients. So they were either fresh out of high school or they were moving into post-secondary. So we got to I had the privilege of interviewing a number of them, and we also have so many other professionals in their own way. So I think that's something that I really appreciate about Fireside Chats is there's not um one thing that defined professional. There's not one thing that defined when you were someone who should be viewed as a role model. There was people that, maybe they stayed home and took care of their kids, and their kids all went on to high school and post-secondary, and now they're going into getting a degree themselves. There's people that are artists, there's people that are singers, there's people that are designers and whatever it might be. There's writers. So unlike the Western view of someone that you look up to and someone that should be considered a role model for a community, um, Fireside Chats didn't go that way. They listened to the community, they listened to with made their own interactions. There's almost everybody that is part of Connected North or some of our leadership funds, where we can give grants and bursaries to certain youth that would like to do things within their community. We interviewed a number of them. So there really was no specific guideline, and I think that that is beautiful because it also opens the world, opens the door for young people to see that there's so much out there. There's not just one way. And for a lot of youth, especially Indigenous youth, it's really important to see yourself in those professions, to see what it looks like, to see people that came from broken homes, from addictions, from living off the land, whatever it might be, came from that kind of background and ended up where they are today. It seems possible. It seems like there's you don't have to invent the wheel. And I think that that's one thing that's really important, and a good reason to incorporate Fireside Chats into your classrooms and to your curriculum and all of those wonderful things. So that's my perspective. As an Indigenous, I think if I was a youth today in school and I got to see and had the opportunity to just go on Fireside Chats and see all of these amazing people, see what they did, the different kind of jobs that they do, hear their stories. I'm really thankful for the road that I've taken in life, and I love being an educator, but I might have gone elsewhere. I might have saw that there was possibilities for me to achieve whatever my heart desired at the time. So for that, I'm really thankful for Fireside Chats.
Thanks, Jasmine. You mentioned the digital inclusion grant. So also during the pandemic, one of the things that we heard from many of our community partners with Connected North was that many students didn't have access to their own laptop computer, which all of a sudden became important, especially for those in grade 11 and 12 going on to post-secondary, where many universities were all of a sudden expecting them to come to university with a laptop or starting their first year of university with a device. And so we raised funding to award over 2,000 laptops to grade 11 and 12 students from the communities we serve and from other communities that were going into post-secondary. And because access to bandwidth is so limited, this is all great content, but there are articles that we wrote. So when we first started the program, it was all videos. And then we stumbled upon an amazing writer, Alison Tedford-Seaweed from BC, who started helping us turn the videos into written articles. And then Shaikara David from Akwesasne, an amazing illustrator who's helped us now illustrate over 300 of the almost 600 stories that are now on the site. But what we did is we worked with Apple to preload over 100 gigabytes of those video stories onto the laptop. So when a student got their laptop, it wasn't just the device, but it was all these amazing Fireside Chats and then some Create to Learn content that I'll share a little bit later. So that was how, you might wonder, well, you created video content, how could the communities access it? We also loaded it onto USB sticks that we sent up to our community partners. And thanks to this funding from the federal government, a program called Supports for Student Learning, we were able to distribute a number of these laptops to ensure access to the content. And so that what we did is we worked with two educators, so Christine M'Lot from Winnipeg and Marika Shala, and they helped us take a lot of the Fireside Chats and create a teacher's guide and an accompanying textbook for them. But before we did that, we also worked to develop about 50 discussion guides. So if you're on a Fireside Chat, you might see that a number of them have this discussion guide link here on the bottom right, and that'll open up a bit of a PDF. So for teachers, we've come up with a bit of a discussion guide if you wanted to pick a specific role model and a number of kind of questions or activities for students related to them. To take that work a step further, Christine and Marika then created an entire teacher's guide, which is available online as a downloadable resource, but it's also on Amazon as a printed book if you prefer. And so teachers can go through, and there's connections across the curriculum, and there's a number of different activities that take several of the stories in each career category and break them down into lessons. We've also created a print version of a student resource. So if students can't access video content, they can actually go through that same content that way as well. So something I wanted to share. So that's Christine and Marika. They wanted, and we've presented this work before, they wanted to clarify that the lesson plans that they developed are rooted in teachings from the Anishinaabe, Cree, and Red River Métis cultures. So just to be clear, they don't represent all Indigenous communities, but their teachings from those cultures are what they kind of infused through the lesson plans. And the format, they have the curriculum connections. There's a bit of like a time duration for each one, an overview and any required materials. And then they've used this kind of 4A format. So this activate, acquire, apply, and assess. I see a question from David in the chat. He's asking about whether the programs are geared towards only youth or also to mature students. The work that we do with Connected North directly is focused on the K-12 classrooms, but I know that many adult learning centers, other kind of programs have taken and used the Fireside Chats and Create to Learn content with a variety of people in different ages. It is all available in Creative Commons, which means that you can use and build on the content as long as you cite it and don't commercialize it. And all of the videos are also downloadable. So if you need to use them offline, if you have limited bandwidth, you can download and use them offline as well. So they are portable, but the work that our charity does is really focused on K-12 education setting. But they are freely available for all ages. So that is a little bit of a look at Fireside Chats and the lesson plans. When you go into that lesson plan section, you'll see that it's available there, and the book is also linked on Amazon. We do have some funding also specifically to distribute the printed books to schools that are primarily serving First Nations, Inuit, and Métis students. So when you do the exit survey at the end of the webinar, if your school does serve those students, and if you'd like to request some of those resources, let us know, and Jen is going to be sharing those responses with us, and we do have some funding to provide some of those printed resources free of charge. Otherwise, any funding from those printed books goes into the Connected North program as a charity, but everything is available free online, so it's not required to purchase those books and resources. So that is a little bit of a look at Fireside Chats. Before we went into the next section, what I thought we would do is just give you a few minutes. We'd love to just know a little bit more about your own experience. And so what I thought we'll do is just take a few minutes for you to share a little bit of a response to this question in the chat. And the question is, how are you already incorporating Indigenous perspectives in your teaching? Because I'm sure many of you who are coming here are already doing things that you could share with others and sharing best practices. Or are there particular courses or activities that you're hoping to integrate those lessons and activities into? So what I thought I would do, just to give us a little bit of background music, is when you go into Whose Land and you look at a treaty or look at a community or a territory, you'll see that it automatically links to Fireside Chats from that territory. So for example, with Treaty 6, you'll see there's 13 Fireside Chats linked to Treaty 6. And then there's also videos that have been contributed by partner organizations or content providers from Connected North. And one of those partners is Nuijanan, who some of you may have heard of. They work with a number of communities to develop music videos by students. So just to give us a little bit of background music as you think and share, I'm just going to reshare with audio, and I will just play that song. It'll give us about 4 minutes to do like a think, pair, and share. And for some reason, It's not letting me share my sound. Let me just see 1 second here. Computer audio. Yeah, I think I'm sharing now. Let's see if does this come through?
Yes, it is.
She knows the world is dark, but she could be the fire and brighten up the path to all of her desires. She no longer cares what anybody thinks. She'll focus on herself. She really wants to sing. Uses all her strength so she can finish the fight to be young, happy, and fine living her life. Road is long, life is short. There's more to us. When we're young, we ignore the morning comes. To be young and happy. We just want to show what we can be. A young girl looking for commitment. Wakes up to make up, her skin is always hidden. She gets attention but rushes too fast. She finally meets a boy but they become a newsflash. He sees her, he needs her, eventually he leaves her. And now she is forced to be her only daughter's keeper. But found happiness in keeping her child. It's her world, it's her purpose, it's the reason she smiles. Silent cries and broken hearts, singing where can she be? Her life has been in the dark. It took away all her dreams. So I'll raise my voice and honor the missing. Wipe away your tears. The angels are listening. This long life is short. There's more to us. When we're young, we ignore the morning comes. To be young and happy. We just want to show what we can be. He was misunderstood, a boy who lost his way, been caught so many times, took off in the rain. He was homeless for a while. An old lady came to say that he could live a better life, and it's never too late.
So he turned home to find his heart again. He was met with open arms from his guardian. He see his old friends drinking and partying. While traditions have risen, his spirit and the spark within. He used to be a dancer, practicing ceremonies. Now he's smudging, praying, hoping he keeps a focus. He found a new faith, walking the better path. He wants to do great, so he'll forever dance.
The road is long, life is short. There's more to us. When we're young, we ignore the morning comes. To be young and happy. We just want to show what we can be. We just want to be young and happy. We just want to show what we can be.
Awesome. Thanks to everyone for sharing. I know some people are probably still typing away. I'll just bring back the screen sharing. But that was the lovely Young and Happy by students in Onion Lake Cree Nation. So I know Nui has video editing experts that travel to each community and help produce these beautiful music videos. And that does actually connect quite a lot to to the work that Create to Learn does that I'll share next. But one other feature I wanted to highlight on Fireside Chats is if you go into the Explore section, I may have shown this briefly, but if you're looking particularly to highlight role models from your region, for example, if you're in Saskatchewan and students are looking specifically at, for example, skilled trades, you can kind of do those filters. Or in Nunavut, often they're looking to highlight Inuit role models. So you can filter, for example, only Inuit role models there. So there is the ability to filter both by career category, province, and First Nations, Métis, or Inuit, or you can do a basic search. And we also welcome other ideas and feedback. We are currently redesigning the homepage of the Fireside Chats website. And we also have one of our former team members who's doing what she's calling Pathfinder Circle, where she's going to interview some of the past guests to see where they've, what they've been doing since they did their Fireside Chats a few years ago. So those are some of the things that we're working on, but welcome any other ideas or feedback you have as you explore this resource with your students. So that is Fireside Chats. Is there anything in the chat, Jasmine, that you wanted to highlight, or is there anyone that would like to share what they've written, or anything that they wanted to share? Otherwise, maybe I think they can raise their hands. Is that right, Jen? And then we could possibly invite them.
Unfortunately not, but we do have someone, Marnie White, who has a question. So, and I do think it's timely. If you don't mind, I'll just read it out loud and you can take a moment to answer it. So Marnie White writes, I am a career counselor trying to find a balance to support Indigenous students in finding their own path. I'm trying to respect that my colonial desire for them to enroll in post-secondary might not be their desire, but I also want to ensure that they feel supported in reaching their goals and aren't lacking the confidence and support to dream big. So what is that balance?
Jasmine, can I let you maybe speak to that a little?
Yeah, I can attempt to. This is a really really big question. I think that ensuring that you believe that your students can achieve anything, for a lot of Indigenous students, and I can't speak for all, but I can speak for myself, I didn't feel like anyone believed in me, and I didn't think that there was, with Fireside Chats, what I think is so beautiful is that it opens the door for students to see themselves in these positions. And if you're from an isolated community, or if you're from a family that has never thought that post-secondary was something that is within your reach, then you're not going to even dream about it. You're not going to think about it. It's not going to cross your mind. So I think allowing them to see what's out there is the best way to do this. And acknowledge, I think you're right in acknowledging that, going to post-secondary and all of those things, it might not be within their traditional ways. But if you think about, when we signed treaties and all of that, we had a really good understanding that it was education that was going to be what gets us, what survives us, what allows us the tools to be here today. So I think for them to see other Indigenous people in those areas will open their eyes to the possibilities, you're not exactly driving them towards that, but allowing them to see what supports are out there. Connected North also has panel discussions, Future Pathways panel discussions once a month, where we talk with different post-secondaries that will talk about all of the things that are available for Indigenous students within their institution. And I think that is wonderful, because they can see, there's more support out there. There's a community outside of their community that's waiting for them and that's ready to open them with open arms. But I think that's how I would address it. That's what I would encourage. Just open their eyes to the world out there. A lot of us don't, we don't even think that that's something that's possible, and let them know that you believe that they can achieve it and that they deserve to have all of the access to all of those things. It doesn't matter just because you're from an isolated, or just because you're Indigenous, or whatever it might be, then society has told you that you don't deserve, or you don't fit in, or you might not be part of what is the status quo. Nobody is any more deserving than they are in achieving all of their dreams.
Thanks, Jasmine. That's also something that I talked about features for the future. One of the things we're working on is adding post-secondary institutions to the Fireside Chats. It's not quite ready yet, but when you go into a Fireside Chat, it'll show which post-secondary institutions that person attended. And if you click on it, it'll show you all the people from that college or university. And it'll also show you information about their services or their resources for Indigenous students. So we've been working on compiling all that information and kind of creating landing pages, because sometimes when you go to their site, it can be kind of overwhelming for students to navigate, or there's so many different programs and opportunities. So we're hoping to have that up and running for September, where there'll be kind of a landing page for each institution and more resources and more profiles of alumni. So if a student's thinking of going to, Algonquin College, they can see all the Fireside Chats with alumni and other resources. I know that Kim asked that question. I saw that in the chat as well. So Kim, one of the things I didn't highlight at the beginning, so I'm glad you asked, is on Whose Land there is a section called Learning, and there's 4 different lesson plans for students to create land acknowledgements that Christine has created. So there's a kindergarten to grade 5 lesson, grade 6 to 9 lesson, a high school lesson, and there's also a workspace or like school lesson. We have a lot of companies that say, what do I say, right? And the answer to that is complex. You're not just supposed to have a copied and pasted response, but you want people to build relationships and reflect. And so Christine has developed some brilliant lessons and activities, both for schools and for organizations, to go through that process individually and together. And there's a lot of resources as well that she recommends as part of that, just in terms of, depending on the age group of the students, just understanding things like the TRC calls to action, the 60 Scoop, the history of residential schools. Like there's age appropriate resources and inquiry, the MMWIG report and the professional learning list. So Jasmine, is there anything you would want to add too in terms of like your reflections on like developing a land acknowledgement?
No, I think that like you said, it shouldn't be a copy and pasted, like developed by an institution kind of thing. It should be a personalized relationship that you have with the land that you are living on. So that's how I would kind of add that. But I also want to address Russell Long's question here in the chat. It can be really difficult, not really difficult, but when you encourage your students to go to post-secondary and letting them know that there's all of these wonderful programs for Indigenous students, and I just caution you, not saying this is something that anyone does, but I encourage you to let them know that these programs are not there because you are not smart enough to get into the mainstream. They are not there because they have been, adjusted to fit, this idea that Indigenous students are not as smart as, or they need the extra support. Those programs are there to also address the holistic understanding and connection that Indigenous people have. So it's understanding and nurturing the 4 parts of a person, whereas mainstream education is often only focused on the learning. It's not focused on taking care of the whole person. So when doing that, just a caution, just make sure that your students know that by going to a TEP program or going to an Indigenous nurses program or an Indigenous social work program or whatever it might be, it's not because you're not smart enough, but it's because those programs are specifically geared and also often taught by other Indigenous people that might already be from your community. So, kind of in that way. And I know that's kind of a little bit off from what we're talking about today, but something to be mindful of.
Thanks, Jasmine. That's great. We'll keep our eyes on the chat and keep bringing in questions. But the second kind of main program, the content and career connections that we wanted to share, is called Create to Learn. And this was a program that we had developed kind of in parallel to Connected North before the pandemic. And it's linked to Whose Land in that we know that to create content like the content that Nui Janan shares, you need to have 2 things. You need to have the skills to use video editing or to write scripts and things like that, or to act in a film, but you also need the technology. You need the hardware to do it. And so we secured some funding that allowed us to work with students from over 100 communities. I know we had a summit in Saskatoon, we had one on Haida Gwaii, we had one in Ontario with Chiefs of Ontario, and also for students across Nunavut, where students came together in person and in groups of 2, and then each student was given a laptop computer, a GoPro, a drone, and a 360 camera to take back to their community to share and to help develop digital storytelling. And then they also received mentorship and training from Imaginative, who was kind of our partner in that. And similarly, during the pandemic, that obviously that training, that program had to be stopped. We couldn't, do the training that was planned. And so we also decided to pivot to a bit of an online approach. Jasmine, do you want to add a little bit to that or talk a bit more about it? And then I can navigate through. This is a brand new version of the Create to Learn site that just relaunched recently that I can talk a bit more about too.
For sure. So from my understanding, it's not just about technology either. I do believe that there is some artists that are on there that share, beading, tufting. You can see here, there's all kinds of different resources. And so within Connector North, we have a lot of sessions where these people provide learning for our students. And why these were put into place is because if there was a student that maybe missed a class or whatever it might be, they could go onto this website and they can view all of this. But these are available for so many other people, and I think that that's wonderful because just understanding the access to a lot of cultural knowledge. It's wonderful that there's many professionals or people that have built up their skill set are now able to share that at such a huge capacity. And there's all kinds of different learning. So you can build onto your skills if you have some understanding of, story writing or editing or Photoshop, whatever it might be. There's so many different things that you can share and have your students learn with this program and this platform.
Part of the idea too was to keep working with these same creators. So obviously we couldn't do the in-person training, but we hired them instead to do these recorded versions of their training that then any young person could access. And they also still own those training sessions. So we just funded them through Create to Learn to create, some of you may have heard of like Masterclass. It's like a similar app where you have people teaching all kinds of skills. So this is kind of like an Indigenous masterclass where people can learn. As Jasmine mentioned, there's a lot of cultural teachings that people wanted to share, both connected to Connected North and also just, activities that other groups were doing virtually during COVID, during the pandemic. And so we were able to fund their activities, and they then created resources that any student could benefit from and learn from. So a lot of really powerful resources here. Shaikara, who does all the Fireside Chat illustrations, she even recently did 3 new ones to actually teach students, how to draw anime or how to do digital illustration. So there's a lot of activities that don't require technology. And then there are some that do require software. A lot of them have free options that students can build on. Again, when we first launched this project, it was just a set of videos on YouTube or Vimeo. There was no structure, there was no website. We built the first version of the website a couple of years ago. And then just a few weeks ago at the Inspire conference, we relaunched this new version. And the benefit of this new version is that students, if they want to, can actually sign up and sign in, similar to Netflix. They can create a watch list of what they want to learn. They can track what courses they've completed. They can share courses with one another. And in the future, we're hoping to make it easier for teachers to track what their students are doing in a classroom context. So it doesn't require sign up, doesn't require login, but if students want to keep track of what they're doing or keep track of the resources that they found, it's easy for them to do that through Create to Learn. And a lot of fun topics. There's, how to build your own Shopify store. Casey Desjardins has this Cash In on Your Passion. She's someone that we funded with her partner Dakota through our Youth Leadership Fund, where they launched Decolonial Clothing. So they launched their own clothing brand that now even has a physical store. So it's been another great way of engaging with the young people and experts that we've funded through the Youth Leadership Fund and getting them to share their knowledge with one another. And then similar to Fireside Chats, we created both a student textbook and a teacher version of lesson plans. And those are grouped, Christine kind of grouped them into 3 categories. 3 units. So the first unit is all about photography, filming, and acting. So students learn kind of basics of photography. Patrick Shannon, a filmmaker from Haida Gwaii, has this really fun session called Film Yourself Like a Boss. Diana has a digital media session. There's kind of a series, and then Anna Lamb has So You Want to Be an Actor. There's a cultural creations and business session that kind of connects to like making things and then how you sell them, how you monetize that. A lot of students I know on Instagram or other places are selling their beadwork or selling their creations. So some tips and support on that. And then the third unit is on music and recording. So again, all of these are free downloadable lesson plans, mostly focused on middle school and high school. But similarly, if you are working with Indigenous students, we do have some funding available to get some of those print copies in your hands. They're also linked to here on Amazon, who's helped us publish them. So that's a little bit of the link. Russell mentions building quadricopters. Yeah, so exactly, that's one of them. Legally to fly a drone, students need to complete an exam. And so there's Chris, who's a Métis kind of drone pilot, has a course that helps students prepare for that exam. It's only a $10 exam from Transport Canada, but technically they should complete that exam and then they can put that on their resume and they can get hired to fly drones. So that's one of the examples of something they can do through Create to Learn. So those are the connections. And I know we're just about to our Q&A time, but I just wanted to quickly tease one last resource, which is kind of connected to Create to Learn. It's called Your Voice is Power. And this is a program that's more focused on coding and technology. And it uses music to engage students in coding their own songs, remixing the beats of Indigenous artists Dakota Bear, Jay Lee Wolf, Samyan, and Twin Flames. So I'll just leave the link, that one in the chat. But this is a resource, again, that exposes students to careers in technology and coding in a way that attracts a lot of students who would have never thought of themselves as a coder, but it uses music as a hook. Who doesn't love music, right? And getting to remix the work of these artists. So another great program and resource that links to Create to Learn, but kind of provides more of a focus on coding. I know there's coding is being added to the curriculum in many provinces and territories, and people have been looking for like a way to connect coding with cultural knowledge and teachings as well. There's a whole unit on Spirit Bear Calls to Action in the TRC. So Jasmine, maybe I'll give you the last word, the last couple of minutes before our Q&A time. I know you've seen this program in action and you've seen a little bit of Create to Learn as well. Is there anything you wanted to share just in terms of how that kind of representation has been motivating for students and the kind of linking careers with music?
No, I think you did a great job. It's just so beautiful to see how excited they are and how much they can cover in such a short time. Like they make a whole song in such a short amount of time, and the students, it's also the understanding that they are going to the messages within the songs. It's not just music. So within the Your Voice is Power, it's beautiful to see that it's they're also learning certain messages, and that's great.
And this program is in both Ojibwe and Inuktitut as well. So not only the website, but also the programming interface. So students can go in and they can actually do their code and kind of see Inuktitut and Ojibwe used as the interface for their coding. And many new words had to be created by Elder Nancy Jones with her grandson Jason Jones to do that. So that was a really powerful part of the experience. So I know we've come to our 10 minutes of Q&A. We'd love any questions you have for us. I know we've kind of answered some throughout, and then we'd also love your reflections or any ideas you wanted to share on how you think you might incorporate these resources shared today, any ideas you have for how we can get the word out further. And just really grateful to Joy and to Jen and to the My Blueprint team, because we've been working on building and sharing these resources for 4 years now. And we really appreciate the opportunity through your networks to get them out there. Again, they're all free, they're all open source, kind of Creative Commons. And we hope they'll help you increase representation of Indigenous excellence, Indigenous voices, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit role models in your classrooms, schools, and communities. So thank you so much for having us. And we'd love to chat about any other questions or ideas you have.
Thank you so much, Michael and Jasmine. There's so many great takeaways. It's such great resources. All of them are so interconnected. I think, as you mentioned, the Fireside Chat, the first time I saw it, it was at the Inspired conference. And I was just like, wow, this is so important to have this representation. So thank you for sharing all of these resources. And I'll just be sharing a few things before before we go. Everybody can see my screen. Yes. Yeah. Great. For sure, in terms of the takeaways, please go and explore all the resources that were shared today. We'll be sharing the links to Taking It Global resources as well. After you go do these resources, I know My Blueprint is a great place as well to make sure that you document this learning. Student can continue exploring the pathways through Education Planner as well that they go and explore on Fireside Chats, for example. So those are all great ways to connect both programs. We also have new resources that are coming that were created in a partnership with ONECA. So one of them is career discussion cards through an Indigenous lens. And we also have one called the Medicine Wheel in Career Exploration. So as Jasmine mentioned, it's really looking at career exploration holistically, not just the one dimension of someone looking holistically at a student's need. We also have a webinar that we did last year that my colleague Joy hosted with ONECA, so supporting Indigenous students with their future pathway possibilities. And we have one that's coming as well that we are going to be, it's not going to be a live webinar, it's going to be just a step-by-step kind of guide for teachers that are interested in bringing more Indigenous perspectives. So we're working with ONECA on that resource that is going to be ready in September. And I also want to share some exciting news that My Blueprint and Taking It Global, and especially with Fireside Chats program, are going to be collaborating. So as some of you might already know, in My Blueprint, when students go and look for occupation, there's always videos. So we're working right now of being able to collaborate. So when students look at certain occupations and certain pathways, that is going to lead them to Fireside Chats as well. So just another avenue for them to find these amazing videos and look at all of these great stories and just be more aware of this representation. So that is going to be ready, I presume, for next September. So you'll see these great videos added. And I also want to share, as Joy mentioned in the chat, that last year we did add at least 100 Indigenous programs in our post-secondary options. So when students go and do research, we added new occupations as well. So just trying to be more inclusive to all learners and all pathways. And just sake of time, it would be great and if you take a moment just to fill out our feedback survey, which I'll share with Michael and Jasmine as well. So as Michael mentioned, if you're interested in getting one of those Fireside Chat books, resources, that is one of the questions. So we're going to be keeping track of everybody and making sure that you do receive this book. So thank you so much to our guest speaker. Thank you so much for everybody that joined us today, for taking the time out of your busy day again. We hope that you get to use these amazing resources and that you're excited as I am for everything that Taking It Global is doing. So thank you, Jasmine and Michael, and thank you everybody for coming today.